All right, hello there. My name's Rob. I'm with precodecamp.com, and in this video, we're going to do a challenge that allows you to get some experience with arrays and randomizing numbers in order to access the array. So it's going to be a real great lesson for you to try to incorporate some of the skills that you have been learning in your beginning JavaScript experience. All right. And so this challenge starts off with write out 5 different sayings a magic 8-ball might say and actually store them into an array. So we want an array of strings. And then we're going to write a function that will randomly select one of the sayings and return it. Now, as a bonus, later on in this tutorial towards the end, we're going to go to a CodePen.io project and we're going to we're going to simply almost copy and paste the functionality that we have in here and actually apply it to a web page. And so that way you can follow along with that as well. So, all right. So the first thing that we're going to give you with this project is, and again, if you've been following any of my videos here with Precodecamp, is I'm not going to fully explain the random generator, but this is the randomized generator that you'll see in a lot of my videos that I have. I explained it in several of them, but just know that it takes a minimum and a maximum, and we are going to supply it with a min and a max, and it's going to randomly generate a number between those utilizing this function. So again, this is a function that you will see repeatedly in your learning, and so it's just something that you're going to accept and learn about as you're going on. So that's not the main focus of this, but just know that we can use this function here later on in order to generate a random saying, right? So the next thing is, let's go ahead and write out 5 different sayings a magic 8-ball might say and put them into an array. So I'm going to do something like this. I'm actually going to put a comment in here, so I'll do a magic 8-ball sayings. And here I'm just going to do a const sayings equal and then the square brackets. Okay, so this is where you're going to put in 5 sayings that you would like the magic 8-ball to say. Feel free to keep these things a little bit short because it's going to be needed for the CodePen. Your words might go outside of the magic triangle, but anyways, I believe that these will all fit in there. So feel free to pause the video and go ahead and type those in. Okay, and then resume the video. All right, so just to reiterate what we have so far is we have a function that's going to get our random numbers. We have sayings that we can randomly choose in here. So one of the things that we have to think about is, as we're learning this, is how am I going to actually access one of these sayings? And so for that, we can do a console log real quick. And we're going to identify the variable first. So we're going to do sayings. And then I'm going to do square bracket notation. And then remember, things are indexed utilizing a 0 base, right? So if I wanted it is certain, then I would put inside these square brackets index 0. I'll go ahead and save that, run it for us, and you can see it is certain. Again, if I go to the next one and save it and then I run it, I get it is decidedly so, right? And so that's how we're going to access these throughout. So let's go ahead and create a function and at least let it return one of these sayings. And in this example here, we'll use 0 as our saying here, but we need a function to actually return this. So let's go ahead and create a function that will return the random saying. And for that, I'm just going to create a function here called getMagic8BallSaying, and we're going to close off the curly brackets, and then I'm just going to do a return here of saying square bracket 0. All right, and again, I'm just trying to step this out for us, so that way you're kind of following my thought process. I'm kind of thinking out loud. I just need a function right now to return a saying. That's really all I want. I don't care about the randomization quite yet. I'm going to solve that after I can get this to work. So then I'm just going to do a console log of this function, and then I'm going to invoke the function. All right. So let me go ahead and save that. I'm going to clear this out, and then I'm going to run it. And notice that I get it is certain. All right, and no matter how many times I run it, I get the same answer, and that's because I hard-coded in a 0. Okay, so what do we need to do in order to get it to be a little more random, right? Well, notice right here, this index. If I can get this thing to change randomly, that would be perfect. So sometimes what we'll do here is we'll create a variable outside of here, and we'll do a const random index, and I'll set that equal to the random number generator. Now the random number generator takes two things. It takes the minimum index that we want, which is 0, okay? And then what's the maximum one? Well, if that's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And if we were to do this dynamically, because maybe we want to have more sayings later on, we don't want to hard code in this 4. We want to take in the array length. So we want saying dot length, but dot length actually gives us a count of 5. We don't want 5. We want whatever the length is minus 1. Okay? And so that means inside these square brackets, we can put in the random index, and that should get us our random saying. So you may rely on it without a doubt. So you can see here that it is totally random for our uses and cases here. Okay, so that's the code right there. What we'll do next is we'll move to CodePen and actually apply all of this. We're going to copy this and move it over. So we'll do that part next. All right, so what we want to do next is we want to highlight all the code that we've written so far, all the way up until my line number 9. We don't need the code prompt, so we're just going to copy everything to our clipboard, Control-C or Command-C on a Mac. And then inside of the description, wherever this video is at, you'll see a link taking you to a CodePen that we've set up here for you. Now this CodePen that we have, we've restructured this from the original CodePen, and that way you guys can work with this and see what your JavaScript skills can actually do. So your layout may not look like mine, and all I did is come up here and I clicked on the change view, and then I collapsed the CSS one. I don't need it, I just need the HTML one to be in view. You're going to see how cool it is with going from things that are in the console that we've been working with to actually applying this to an actual page. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to paste what we had, and then we can double check to make sure that this actually worked. We can take a look at the console here, and as long as you have that console log that I have on my line 23, you'll see that we do actually get something in CodePen's console. Now CodePen is very unique where it will refresh on every type of change that it detects. So that's why you see it done there twice. It detected a change twice. All right, I'm going to go ahead and collapse the console. I don't really need it for the next few things. We'll bring it back up if we do. Okay, so how are we going to get this to work? Well, what we're going to need to do is we need to add a click event to one of these divs. And the div that we're going to attach an onClick to is going to be the ball. So if you see on the HTML, we have a div with an ID of ball. And so we can go out there and grab that element in JavaScript, and then we can manipulate things or add events to it as we need. So what we're going to do first is I'm just going to do something like this. I'll say let ball equal and then document dot query selector, and then inside the parentheses here we're going to attach it to the ID of ball. And to do that in JavaScript, it's very much like CSS. We're just going to call it by the ID, so we're going to use the # or hashtag, and then we're going to do BALL. Okay, so that's how we're going to go out there. We're going to grab it, and then we're able to add an onClick event to it. And we can do something like this. We can say ball.onClick. We're going to set that equal to just an anonymous function. And this function's responsibility, and just to double check to make sure that this does work, I'm going to console log it, and it works. And let's go ahead and test that out before I move on, because this is a Very tricky thing to kind of do and test out, and you don't know where your code may have broke. But if I'm going out there and I'm searching for this hashtag ball, I'm hoping that I can add a click event to it. So if I do a console log here and I do a clear and I click on it as many times as I want, here I see that it works. So I know that the onClick event is firing, okay? So now anything inside this function here will be ran anytime the ball actually gets clicked, all right? So I'll go ahead and clear that out, and I no longer need the console. Okay, so let ball equal document, and then we got the ball.onClick with the function inside here. Now we want to run the function that we used to get a saying, right? And we want to store that into a variable. So I'm going to get rid of this console log, and I'll do something like this. I'll say let random saying equal, and then I'm just going to do the following. I'm going to grab this function name and I'm going to invoke it. So now I'm storing it. I'm not console logging it. I'm storing it into this variable here called random saying. Now the next thing that I need to do is I need to change the text content of answer, right? If we look right here, I want to change the text content or the inner text of this div, okay? But first we need to go out there and grab it. So I'm going to do the following. I'm going to say let answer equal, and then I'll do a document.querySelector. And then I'm going to put in there, because it's an ID, I'm going to put the hashtag or the pound sign, and I'll type the word answer. Okay, so I'm just going out there in the HTML world and I'm trying to grab it, right? That's what I'm doing with this query selector. Then I'm able to have access to a lot of the attributes to that HTML element and to be able to manipulate it. So I want to replace the text content or the inner text. You can use those interchangeably, but I'll do text content. So I'll say answer.textContent equals whatever we got back from the get magic ball saying, right? So I can do random saying, okay? Now I know that we could have shortened up some lines of code here, maybe all into one, in order to get this to work properly, but we can see the following. We can say, hey, if I click on this, I now get a random one all the time, okay? So now we need to set up the functionality, and it might be a good little challenge for you because we've already set up an on-click event for the ball. See if you're able to pause and get the on-click event to happen for the button. Okay. So go ahead and pause the video real quick and just see if you can use what we've gone through right here in order to get the reset button to kind of work. All right, so hopefully that wasn't too hard for you, but whenever we're talking about programming, it's always all about seeing patterns and looking for those patterns and seeing if you're able to duplicate it on a different thing, if only the name changes, for example, right? And so in this example here, if we're going to go off of what we did for the ball, let's go ahead and do that for the button. So we'll do something like this. We'll say let btn equal document.querySelector. And then instead of hashtag ball, what do you think that we're going to use? Well, if the only thing that's different is the ID name itself, well, let's go ahead and do that, right? So it's going to be the hashtag and then btn, okay? Again, hopefully you can see the pattern here, btn to btn, ball to ball. All right, so now that we have the button, the btn, right? Let's go ahead and do exactly what we did to the ball and check out that. So again, I'm going to do btn.onClick, and then I'm going to set that equal to an anonymous function. And then I'm going to do a console login here just to double check btn works. Okay, so now I can open up the console here. Hopefully I can scroll down. I'll clear this out, and I see that the button does in fact work. Okay. So now it's just a couple of things that we need to do. Again, if we're following some of the pattern, is we want to change the answer to something like this. Think of a question, then click. Okay. So we already have a really good working example of what we did up here. So we totally could just copy and paste that. Instead of it equaling to random saying, we're just going to put in here the think of a question, then click. Okay. So now that we've done that, let's go ahead and test this out. I'm going to clear this out and put the console down here. So now I can click on each one of these, right? Or I can click the reset button and it now resets it back to think of a question, then click. Okay. So hopefully you did enjoy this video. Please make sure that you like and subscribe. You got to see it from console to conception all in this one video, which is kind of neat. Even though you may not know fully on the document query and how to do DOM manipulation, but you can see all the hard work that you've done in the console can be applied to the web page. So we're not all doing this logic for waste. All right.